The word epiphany means and has to do with revealing. God, we know, revealed God's self through Jesus Christ. We've celebrated the incarnation of Christ, his coming as a baby in Bethlehem. And today, our gospel reading is the only biblical story that we have of Jesus as a youth. It depicts Jesus as a thoughtful learner, listening and asking questions in a very human way and exchange. The Holy Spirit, so present in the events surrounding his birth, is now at work shaping Jesus for his future ministry of seeking the lost, confronting evil, healing the sick, releasing those captive, and lifting the downtrodden. Listen as I read for you from Luke chapter 2, beginning at verse 41. Now, every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And when Jesus was 12 years old, they went up as usual for the festival. When the festival was ended and they started to return, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but his parents did not know it. Assuming that he was in the group of travelers, they went a day's journey. Then they started to look for him among their relatives and friends. And when they did not find him, they returned to Jerusalem to search for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. And his mother said to him, "Child, why have you treated us like this? Look, your father and I have been searching for you in great anxiety." He said to them, "Why were you searching for me? Did you not know that I must be in my father's house?" But they did not understand what he said to them. Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was obedient to them. His mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in years and in divine and human favor. This is the word of the Lord. We are a diverse thinking congregation. But if there's anything that we all agree on and value, it would be the children of our congregation and the joy that they bring to us. As parents, relatives, teachers, guardians, friends of children that we are, and we rightfully should be, we are concerned for their well-being. We feel responsible to protect and teach them, to nurture and nourish their lives, to ensure their health and safety. We all need someone to guide and guard our growing up, because growing up is hard work. Growing up means establishing our identity, figuring out our place in this world. It involves creating relationships, setting priorities, making decisions. We must choose values and beliefs that structure our lives. And along the way, we make mistakes, we get lost, we backtrack, and sometimes we need to even start over. Ultimately, growing up means moving out and finding a new home. This may be a geographical move, but most certainly it involves psychological and spiritual movement. And so it is no surprise that Mary would be in a panic when she discovers that Jesus is not with this group of travelers. The movie Home Alone could have been based on their experience, don't you think? Somehow, Joseph and Mary have taken off from Jerusalem without their boy. Worse yet, they took off without God's boy. Does it get any worse than being entrusted with the only beloved Son of God and then you lose him? That's just got to be somebody's textbook definition of a bad day. Though all of us lose Jesus along our own journeys, don't we? And so with great anxiety, Mary and Joseph set off to search for Jesus. 3 days later, the one who was lost has been found. And Mary's first words are, "Child, why have you treated us like this?" Now, I don't know about you, but what I really hear is, "Where have you been, young man?" Having heard that often enough myself. Your father and I did not survive angel visits, birth in a manger, and living like refugees in Egypt, only to have you get lost in Jerusalem. But of course, Jesus isn't the one who is lost, is he? He seems to know who he is and where he belongs. Mary and Joseph are the ones who are lost. Not understanding and not knowing makes them lost to Jesus. This is a story about who is lost and who is not. But it's also a story about growing up. Jesus growing up, of course. And we know that growing up isn't about how old we are. It's really about moving into deeper and more authentic relationships with God, with our world, with one another, and with ourselves. Here we're told that Jesus grows up and he will be the one to grow up others. You see, Jesus can't be kept in a manger. He will not be that kind of Christmas gift that we can just put back into the box and pack away. He will grow up Mary and Joseph. Children have a way of doing that with their parents, don't they? They challenge us to look at our world, our lives, ourselves in new and different and sometimes painful ways. It's what Jesus' dialogue with the temple teachers here is about. And it is exactly what Jesus' question to Mary does. She had put herself and Joseph at the center of God's world, but Jesus' question to her was about to undo that. Why were you searching for me? Jesus asks. Do you not know that I must be in my Father's house? Jesus is telling Mary that she should have known where he was. It's as if he were saying, remember, the angel told you I would be the Son of God. Remember that night in Bethlehem? Angels praising God, shepherds glorifying God. Remember those magi from the east? their gifts, their adoration. Remember Simeon and Anna? Remember Joseph's dreams that guided us to Egypt and back again to Nazareth? Where else could I be but here? You see, Jesus had put the Father at the center of his world. And he asks Mary and Joseph and us to do the same. To move to the Father's home. And speaking of fathers, as Jesus here claims his relationship with God as Father, this is the Bible's last mention of Joseph. Jesus is moving on. Jesus is growing up. Now, we know from experience that authentic growth almost always involves letting go. Mary's move to the Father's house, her growing up, means she will have to let go of her boy Jesus image. Jesus was born of Mary, yes, but he is the Father's son. He is with her, but does not belong to her. She can give him love, but not her thoughts or her ways. Jesus will be about the Father's business. Ultimately, she must strive to be like him, not make him like her. Jesus, too, is letting go, isn't he? He's letting go of Mary and Joseph's home. He's moving to the Father's house, centering himself in the Father's house and business. This isn't a rejection of his earthly parents. It's just a reprioritizing of relationships. Once grown up, it is what Jesus would ask of Simon and Andrew and James and John. Follow me would be the invitation for them to leave their homes, their nets, their parents, and move to a different place. Live a different life. See with different eyes. And it is what Jesus asks of you and me as well, particularly as we start this new year. Growing up spiritually involves leaving comfort zones, letting go of what is safe and familiar, moving to a bigger place, a wider place, to the Father's place. Letting go is a necessary detachment if we're to grow in the love and likeness of Christ. It means we must leave the false comfort of our own little constructed worlds and homes. So there's a sense in which we all live in many different homes, homes of fear and anger, prejudice, homes of grief, sorrow, homes of shame and unworthiness, in which we've been told or convinced that we don't matter, that we're not enough, unacceptable, unlovable. Homes in which we have been or continue to be hurt and wounded. Homes in which we have hurt or wounded others. Homes of indifference, apathy, sin, guilt. Homes of gossip, envy, pride. Every one of us could name the different homes in which we dwell. Homes that make our lives smaller, our visions narrower. our world emptier. And the problem is, you see, that sometimes we have become too comfortable at home, where we're now dwelling. It's not our true home, nor is it the home God offers to us. The good news is we don't have to stay there. Jesus says that there is not only another space for us to live in, but Jesus invites and guides and grows us up into that wider, freeing space. It's a place he knows well. It is the Father's house, in which we can know ourselves and each other to be his beloved children, created in his image and called to be like him. So why would we continue to pay rent on a place that only seems to impoverish us, when we can move into the Father's home for free? In the Father's home, our place at the banquet is set. It's a home in which we live in rooms of mercy and forgiveness and joy and love and beauty and hope and generosity and compassion. Leaving home doesn't necessarily mean leaving our physical or geographical home, though sometimes it might. It does mean examining and reprioritizing our values and beliefs and relationships that establish our identity and give our lives meaning and significance. It's renewing our commitment to let God be our center and still point of orientation. It means letting go of an identity that is just limited to our biological family, or our job, or our community reputation, or our ethnic group, or political party, and trusting who we are is who we are in God, our Maker, Redeemer. It means we stop relating to one another by comparison, competition, judgment, and begin relating through love and self-surrender and vulnerability. It means we let go of all the fear we have about the future and discover that God is here in the present and that all will be well because God will never, ever forsake us. We stop ruminating on past guilt, regrets, sins, and accept the mercy and the forgiveness of God and each other. We see our life not in opposition to others, but as intimately related and dependent upon others. What are the little homes in which you live? How have they bound up your life, stifled your growth, kept you from the Father's home? What might you need to leave behind in the coming year in order to grow up and move towards a better place? Those can be hard and sometimes painful questions. Ultimately, though, they are questions that are stirred in us by God's irrepressible love, revealed this Epiphany in Jesus Christ. Child, why have you treated us like this? Because I love you. I love you enough to find you when you are lost, to grow you up, and bring you with me into the Father's home. Thanks be to God for his incredible revelation to us, gift to us in Jesus Christ. Amen.